Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Bold But Bold podcast. And this episode is entirely dedicated to and aimed at young people experiencing any type of emotional distress. There is so much in the news about you guys at the moment, and it's confusing. It's confusing, at least I get confused by it. I hear psychologists and psychiatrists and medics talking about childhood mental health, and it confuses me because there are some things that they're absolutely missing. And these are the things that are totally vital to your understanding of what you're experiencing, but also recovery from the things that you're experiencing. Because there is so much misinformation out there. Now look, I'm 51 now, I've got 2 kids of my own. They're 14 and 17, Charlie and Flo. They're great kids, but they've had their issues with anxiety in the past. And we've helped them through that because we understand the science of the condition. There is so much talk around mental health and depression and self-harming and OCD and panic disorder, but it's so confusing to absolutely everybody. In fact, we run retreats and workshops and we have programs for people to help them to recover from these conditions. And very often they come to us, even grown people come to us, totally confused about what it is they're experiencing. They shouldn't be confused. It's very, very simple. Now, I want to inspire you. I want you to truly believe what I'm about to tell you. Because despite how you feel, despite how you respond to the people around you, despite how the people around you respond to you and treat you, you're incredible. And I'll tell you why that is. Everybody on this planet is born equal. It doesn't matter how you look, what gender you are, how you identify yourself to be, irrelevant. Genetics provide you as a human entity, and you are the most perfect human entity there is. And even people that say that they have physical or mental disabilities are incredible resources, and they can respond to the world around them, and create the life that they want to create, despite any deficits, despite any experiences whilst growing up. You can become whatever you want to be, because you are a human entity born in balance. Now the thing is this, genetically we have been given a gift by our parents. That gift is not only life, but it's the ability to live and to function within our lives. As long as we have breath, as long as we have physical health, and that we can move around and interact with our environments, we can become whatever we want to be. Now look, everybody, you'd consider that not everybody is born equal. You know, some people would consider themselves to be better looking or more fit or more or taller or thinner or more capable in some way physically. And maybe the world responds to them differently to the way that they respond to you. But that doesn't make them better. They've just been gifted something. It was chance that made them that way. But there are people in this world who have taken advantage of their incredible sense of humanity and of drive and ambition and all of those positive attributes that we're given as a human entity. And they've made incredible things. They've created incredible lives for themselves. I'll give you some examples. Right, here we go. So, this guy, right? He has made he's an exceptional example of somebody who's taken life and learned and created and worked hard and become the person he wanted to be. Now, if somebody had presented him to you 10 years ago and you didn't know who this guy was, you'd look at him, a photograph of him, and you wouldn't see him on social media with people voting on him and saying he's the best looking man in the world. You wouldn't expect him to have millions of likes from just posting a photograph of himself. In fact, you know, from a physical perspective, he's a good-looking guy, but he's not traditional. He's not a Kardashian. You know, he's not that sort of that thing that most people want to aspire to be like today, for very superficial reasons. He's a very normal guy who has used what genetics has given him to become the incredible person that he is. And here is that guy. We all know him. He's phenomenal. He has basically taken what life has given him and learnt skills and applied himself because he had self-belief that he had the ability to become great. And he has become great. I'll give you another example. This guy. Now, as far as I know, this guy had a form of learning disability at school. I think he had attention deficit disorder or something like that. I think it may even be some form of autistic spectrum disorder. But this guy, Richard Branson, is one of the most successful people in the world. But if you were presented to him, no matter at whatever age, you wouldn't look at him and say, oh, this guy's destined for greatness because he's going to get the most likes on social media or because people are just going to love him for who he is. He has worked incredibly hard, despite some learning issues, to become an incredible human being. Here's another example. This guy, Bill Gates. Like Richard Branson, he worked incredibly hard and was passionate and driven and worked incredibly hard to create something that nobody else had created. This is the guy that co-founded Microsoft. He's a phenomenal human being. But if you'd have looked at him at high school, would you have known that? Would you have given him likes on social media? Would people have... he may have even been bullied at school. Richard Branson may have been bullied. Ed Sheeran may have been bullied. These are kids that don't fit into slots in society now that we would categorise as cool. But they're phenomenal humans. This man has given billions to charity. He's saved billions of lives probably over his entire career. But who'd have thought it? Another example. You look at this photograph of what looks like a relatively attractive but plain-looking girl. This is a supermodel. This is Tyra Banks. Through determination and grit and confidence, she has become the person that she wanted to be. And there are so many examples of people like that in society. But nowadays, what we do is go on Instagram or we go on Snapchat and we see people taking photographs of themselves and applying filters and creating this sense of perfection that is false. It's not real. And the point I'm trying to make is that your self-perception, so how you perceive yourself, how you think about yourself, and how others perceive you is only down to one factor, and that's your ability to be the authentic you. We all, every single one of us, regardless of what you think, have our strengths. We all have something to offer to the world, whether that's a teaching role, whether it's as an ambassador for something. It doesn't matter how you use your natural attributes and your abilities, you will become great, and you can become great. Now, for all those people sat out there saying, yeah, but I don't feel particularly great. I feel really down on myself. I'm a bit overweight. I'm spotty. I'm not the image of perfection. Well, look at these people. Is that the image of perfection? Is this the image of perfection? This is Gwyneth Paltrow. This is one of the world's most successful actresses, a film star, a Hollywood film star that makes huge amounts of money from appearing on screen. Would you look at her and say that she was naturally given the attributes to become that? Not at all. And I could continue. There are millions of people just like these who have become great because they've taken what the world has given them, what life has given them, what genetics has given them, their parents have given them. And they've said, I am not going to settle. I'm going to become what I need to be. And it's through determination and drive and ambition and strength of character that they've achieved that. It doesn't matter what you look like. It doesn't matter how short you are, how tall you are, how much weight you carry. It doesn't matter what your skin type is, your skin colour is. It doesn't matter what your gender is or where you put yourself on the spectrum of genders out there in the world. It doesn't matter what your sexuality is. None of these factors matter. You are an authentic, unique you, and you have everything to offer the world. And the thing is this, ultimately, you are in charge of how you feel. What do I mean by that? Well, let me tell you something. I had agoraphobia. I was housebound. I had OCD. I wouldn't touch things. I was frightened of contamination. I had emetophobia. So I was frightened of vomit or vomiting, so I didn't go anywhere where I thought somebody looked a bit queasy or ill. I had panic disorder, so I had 8 to 10 panic attacks a day. I had a whole spectrum of conditions within the anxiety disorder spectrum. And I went from that to completely well, confident, working and being a productive human in days. I went from the depths of despair, and I was desperate. I didn't feel I had any friends, that nobody liked me. I didn't have a job. I didn't feel that I was worthy of life and happiness. I had an immense feeling of depression, and it was overwhelming. And every day I woke up and it was just, oh God, not again. It's here again. What am I going to do? How am I going to survive today? How am I going to get through my life? And I was told by doctors and psychologists and all sorts of people that I'd always be medicated and I'd always be anxious and I'd have to learn to live with my life the way it is. Now look, and the point is this is coming from the heart, because this isn't rehearsed at all. I'm telling you, the message I've got for you is this. Okay, since I recovered in 1997, which is probably a hell of a long time before you were all born, when I recovered, I made it my mission to bring what I'd learned about mental health and mental wellness and fulfillment to absolutely everybody. And to date, we've estimated that I've helped around 2 million people, probably more than that, but at least 2 million people, to access that part of their mind and their physical abilities to make themselves great. Right? And how did I do that? Well, it's very simple. I communicate the truth, the science. And the truth is this: you're not what you think. You are what you do. Everything in life is about what you do. You've been given the gift of life, the gift of wellness. And I include in that those people who feel that they have physical and mental disability at any level. Because I know people that are in wheelchairs who are paralysed from the neck down, who have the most fulfilling, wonderful lives, despite not being able to move. Genuinely, I know those people. And you'd say, but how can that be? How can that person in that situation feel that way? Because they do, with their life, what creates positive emotional responses. Now, you can sit there playing on your Xbox all day, in a dark room, looking at a small screen. You could sit there looking at your phone all day, interacting with people through cyberspace. You can limit your physical movements and your geographic movements as much as you like. But all you're doing is stopping your body from creating positive emotional responses. The most negative aspect of social media isn't about the interaction. The interaction's negative. It's all fake. Those people aren't real. They've applied filters. They're lying about their lives, a lot of them. They're even lying about who they are, a lot of them. It's a very fake environment. It's an augmented reality in itself. It is virtual reality in itself, because those people, despite being real humans, are presenting themselves in a way that isn't real. That's not them. So it's fake. But that isn't the biggest problem. The biggest problem is your interaction with those small screens. With the Xbox screen, it doesn't matter how big it is on your wall, it's your interaction. Because what you're doing is limiting your body's ability to take in the correct data to produce health and well-being. Understand this correctly. Your eyes, ears, nose, mouth and skin are data collectors. They're like the input devices on computers. Your hands are like a mouse. Your eyes are like a scanner, and so on. They're devices for collecting data and putting it back into the central computer. Now for you, that's about your eyes, ears, nose, mouth and skin taking data and putting it back into your central computer, your brain. If you limit that data, if that data is flawed, if it isn't data that is producing positive responses in your brain, you won't be positive. The interaction that children have between the screen and their eyes is negative in the very fact that it cannot be positive, because it isn't enough data to convince your subconscious mind to produce positive emotional responses. Does that make sense? When you're sat at home and it's a dull day and you don't know what to do, and maybe everybody's gone out and they've left you in the house on your own, and all you've got is your Xbox, your phone and the TV to keep you company. You know that you gravitate to what gives you the biggest kick, the biggest emotional response. So you go to all those things that give you pleasure, right? Now, if that happens to be the Xbox and putting your headphones on and interacting with your friends, then that will give you pleasure. So you'll go towards that. If it's social media and you feel that an interaction through social media, Snapchat, for example, is going to give you that little bit of buzz and that little bit of pleasure, you'll do that. But do you accept that as humans, we're all drawn to what feels nice? We're drawn to the food that tastes nice, the drinks that taste nice. doing those things that make us feel nice, and that could be sport or other things. Do you accept that? Because that's the way humanity works. We're set up neurologically in our brains to go towards those things that feel good. Okay? So just because something makes you feel good in the instant doesn't mean it is making you good. So the interaction between your phone and social media, the interaction between yourself and your Xbox, even if you've got your headphones on talking to your mates, yes, it might feel good in the short term, but is it doing you good? The things that are genuinely doing you good are those things that expand your social network, that expand your environmental network, that get you out, that get you bringing in the correct data, positive data, that makes you a more positive person. You can't do that by staring at a little screen, or playing on the Xbox, or being in a dark room, or being confined, or being away from other people. If you are experiencing, and this is a message directly to young people, if you are feeling low, if you are feeling desperate, if you are feeling anxious, if you are feeling phobic, and if you feel the world is against you, the one thing that you should not be doing is cocooning yourself away and hiding from those things that will actually give you a more positive experience of the world. It is absolutely vital that you understand that social media in itself isn't bad. It's the environment that social media puts you into that is bad. You need to expand your environment. You need to get out. You need to kick a ball. You need to play with friends in an external environment. You need to go in the woods. You need to go for a walk, go for a bike ride. You need to do sports. Whatever it takes, you need to get out. And if you do that during your waking day, during the, 12, 14, 15 hours that you're awake every day, if you do that, that 15 hours will convince your subconscious mind to produce positive emotional responses. It cannot do that in a dark room. It cannot do that through a small screen. It cannot do that in any augmented way. People who launch these apps for well-being and the meditation apps and all these things that are supposed to program your brain to be more positive or to put you into a sense of relaxation, it's all nonsense. They're just fixes. The truth is, as a human, you're born in balance. When you were born in balance, systemic balance. You were born in mental and physical balance. And all you needed to do was maintain that through life. And you didn't, because life happened. And all of the things that have happened to you, and it doesn't matter whether you're tall, short, whether you consider yourself to be ugly or good looking, it doesn't matter what colour your skin is, or what ethnic background you're from, or what your sexual preferences are, or how you recognise yourself on the spectrum of genders. Irrelevant, completely irrelevant. The point is, you are an amazing entity. You're a human entity that has been born into this world and deserves the very best. But you won't get the very best unless you encounter and engage with those things that give rise to positive emotional responses. Think about school. You go to school, you learn to read, you learn to write, and then you go through a learning process which leads you to your exams. Right? It's very simple. You just have to absorb the information. You just have to focus, listen, and absorb the information, and then regurgitate it when you're asked to. It's a very simple process. So school is a perfect example of when you expose yourself in the right quantity to the right things, you take on that learning. And it's the same with every aspect of life. If you want to become fit and you're unfit, you expose yourself to exercise. You move your legs and move your arms and lift weights and run. And by doing so, you send messages through your body back to your subconscious to create fitness. That's true of absolutely everything that we do in life. So if you're sat there wondering, feeling desperate, feeling low, feeling anxious, feeling scared about the environment around you, if you're being bullied, and I'll come to bullying in a second, if you're being bullied or you feel you're being bullied or you feel intimidated by your environment, it's because you're not interacting with that environment in a way that is producing a positive emotional response. It's as simple as that. Now, bullying is when somebody applies their beliefs onto you. Now, it's more about them than it's about you, first of all. Let me say that first of all. It's not about you. It doesn't matter how you present yourself or what they say about you or what you think about yourself. The point is you're amazing. It's them that's the problem. Now, if they're bullying you, they are applying their own interpretations of you and also their own emotional state onto you. And that is absolutely wrong. Anybody that does that is there's a massive issue. right? Because it's more about them than it is about you. Now, if they're picking on you, it's because they feel they can pick on you. They might be picking on you because you're smaller than them, or they consider themselves better looking than you. They may be doing it because they consider you better looking than them. It's all down to interpretation between two people. And the thing is, you've got to take action against that. You can't allow people to kick you. You've got to move away. You've got to either move away or you've got to deal with it face to face with the person that is doing it. And if they won't stop doing it to you, you go to a person who's in authority that can help you to stop it. That's simple. That's the only way it can work. If negotiating with the person isn't going to work, you go and get some help elsewhere. That is a practical issue that you have to deal with in that way. But do not believe their bull. Do not allow them to tell you that you're unworthy, that you're ugly, that you're fat, that you're thick, that you're unworthy of your position in this world, because they have no right to do that, and it is absolutely untrue, because you're amazing. Like those people I showed you the photographs of, Gwyneth Paltrow, Tyra Banks, the supermodel, Ed Sheeran, Richard Branson, Bill Gates. Do you think these people had perfect upbringings? Do you think they weren't bullied? Do you think they weren't subjected to things that they didn't want to hear or see? No, but they had the strength of character to move away and to be focused on what they wanted to become in life. And I'm sure if you spoke to these people, they'd give you stories of the ways that people have tried to abuse them along their life pathway. But did they allow it to influence them so negatively that they took action, that they hurt themselves in some way, or that they did something that they themselves and their family would regret? No, they didn't. What they did was they took heed of their own, they listened to their own minds. They understood who they were, their position in the world, as I'm trying to teach you now. And they moved forward despite all of the possible hurdles in life. I was a health anxiety sufferer. I was a panic disorder sufferer. I was an OCD sufferer all the way through school. I was bullied by teachers as well as kids for various reasons. And most of them sociological reasons, things like one of the teachers hated me because he played rugby with my dad, and so he bullied me. Some of the kids thought that they'd pick on the kid with the. Believe it or not, I used to have long hair in the 70s, and people used to think I was a girl, and very often these kids would bully me because they saw me as an easy target. But eventually, I stood up for myself, and I did stand up for myself. I really did at school because I had to, because nobody else was going to fight for me, so I fought. And was that the right thing to do? I don't know, but it stopped it temporarily. But I still suffered from anxiety until I was 27. But ultimately, at 27, I took stock of who I was, what the truth was about myself, not the lies that my condition told me, not the way that people responded to me and the way that psychologists told me that I was weak and that I would never lead a normal life and I'd always be medicated and I'd always be anxious. I didn't believe any of that stuff. I said, no, that's not me. I know that I'm a person with great ability. I may not be living that life now, but I have great ability. And I said, this is the end. And I made the decision to end that situation right there and then. And I said, no, I will not be this anxious wallflower that people just pass by, that people consider to be frail and vulnerable. I'm going to make myself strong. And I did. I changed what I did in my life. I got rid of all of my anxiety conditions. And now, 23, 24 years later, I've helped probably 2 or 3 million people to understand and overcome their anxiety conditions. And you can be me. I'm not saying you're going to be a 51-year-old bald man that wears glasses in 20 or 30 years' time. What I'm saying is you can become a person who becomes an influencer, who becomes an inspiration to others. You can achieve in your life what those people I showed you can achieve because you have it in you to do that. Because if you have the predisposition to suffering from anxiety, low mood, obsessions, compulsions, and all of these conditions that people consider to be frailty, you have something that nobody else has, and that's great strength. And I'm not saying that because, you have to have strength to suffer from these conditions. All of these conditions are caused by a genetic predisposition. They're all caused by greatness, not by frailty and vulnerability, although it feels that way sometimes, but by greatness. I won't go into the deep science of why that is now because it would just be confusing. But take it from me. You are incredible. And if you stop listening to this podcast and move away and say, oh, he's talking a load of rubbish, I can't listen to that guy, what does he know? What do I know? Well, let me tell you this. There'll be people listening to this podcast and people that you'll find on social media who write things like, Charles, you saved my life. Charles, you changed my life. Charles, I had panic attacks for 25 years and they stopped overnight from listening to your advice. These are people who have listened to my advice and listened to and understood the science and of the experiences that they have, and they have changed their lives immediately because they've just listened and done. If you're sitting there thinking to yourself, I'm not like that, I'm just weak, I'm just silly, I'm just vulnerable, it's not true. You are these people. You are these amazing people who have achieved greatness throughout their lives. This is you. This is just you in a few years' time. Because you can be incredible. All you need to do is take your physical and mental attributes, the ones that have been given to you by evolution and by genetics, and utilize them correctly. I want you to sit down and make a list of all those things that you want to achieve in life, right? Everything. What would you be? If you could snap your fingers and take yourself 10 or 20 years into the future, what would you be? What would you most aspire to be? Make a list of those things that you really want to become. Don't become like I want to be a YouTuber, or I want to sell designer clothes on the internet, or none of that superficial stuff. I'm talking about, what does your soul want to be? Do you want to help people? Do you want to create things that assist people in life? Do you want to be involved in charities? Do you want to be involved in education? Do you want to change the way people function in the world? Do you want to help people, to create different environments where they can live more effectively? I don't know. There are a million things that I want to do in life. These are some of the things that I can pull out of my head that I want to do. I mean, ultimately, we're all here to support each other as the human machine. So what do you want to do? What do you want to achieve? Do you want to become a designer? Do you want to become an architect? Do you want to become a musician? Do you want to become, do you want to become a childcare specialist? Do you want to become a nurse or a doctor? What do you want to be? Because people like Carl on my website, a 14-year-old with panic disorder, he hadn't left the house for months when I met him. And we helped him to get back on track. And within a couple of weeks, he was lobbying Parliament to bring mental health into schools. This is a 14-year-old lad that had got panic disorder and agoraphobia and OCD. And he went on television, actually, to talk about his experiences with recovery. And he's now at medical school. He wanted to be a doctor. You can be whatever you want to be. Don't let society or people through social media or people at school, the bullies in life, tell you what you can and should be. You decide that. And forget what they say to you. They have no influence over you. The only influence they have is if you allow them to have influence. If you allow their words and their actions to influence you physically and mentally, you've allowed that. Move away from them. Know what you are. Have the strength of character to write your list and know what you're going to become, and become it. Because you can. Because you're amazing. And I've helped tens of thousands of young people to realise their potential, and to realise that they have potential. Because a lot of people, even like you maybe, don't realise just what an incredible entity you are. And you are. You're a gift to this world. Use it. It doesn't matter what you look like I say, it doesn't matter what your physical or mental attributes are. Just use what you've been given to become the incredible, influential and fulfilled person that you can be. Because I promise you, you can be. Look, I'm not trying to tell you what to do with your life, but all I'm telling you is that if you're sat there feeling glum, feeling down, feeling anxious about everything around you, you can now make a difference. Take action today and you will become the person you want to be. Don't allow how you feel emotionally to dictate what you do in the world, because it's a fiction. All you have to do is change the way you interact with the world and you will change your emotional responses. It's that simple. Get out there and do it. I've helped footballers, I've helped musicians, I've helped, these are famous people, by the way. I've helped actors and actresses, even Hollywood actors and actresses. I've helped people from all the soap operas on TV to regain emotional balance and become happy, non-anxious people. If I can do that for them, I can do it for you. We've helped tens of thousands of people to achieve this. So don't allow another day to pass where you feel down, anxious or depressed, because it is totally unnecessary. Become the person that you need to be, that you want to be, and everything will change almost immediately. That I promise you. Take care.